West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Breaking news tonight. We are just getting exactly this moment in our newsroom a list of new subpoenas that are coming out from this January 6th committee. If you watch the news, you may notice that as of a few moments ago, we said this is the kind of thing we've been waiting on, but we literally just got them, and we think we have quite a notable guest for it. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, an experienced investigator and a Democrat from California who serves on the January 6th committee. Thanks for being here. You know more than most about this plan, the timeline, and what we just got, which is a list of some of the subpoena targets. What can you tell us about this?
Well, this is an active investigation, as is obvious. The subpoenas that were just issued are really directed at the organizers of the rally, people who helped fund it, people who sought the permits. They were campaign people, and we need to understand what was afoot here. From the very beginning, we've needed to find out who funded it, who planned it. You know, there was a mob that said they wanted to kill Vice President Pence, wanted to kill the speaker, wanted to overturn the election. We need to find out everything about how that happened, and this is a step to do that.
Yeah, and Congresswoman, I'm just doing this live with you because if I'd gotten this list, hours ago, I would have done my homework then. So permit me to just be a journalist. But I see here just in the documentation that we got, it says that the committee is investigating Women for America first and trying to get more information about what I take to be their motives or intentions. You got 11 individuals, including their founder and chair, Amy Kremer, Cynthia Chafian, which is listed here as a person who submitted the first permit application to get that January 6th rally going. Some names that news viewers might recognize, like Katrina Pearson, who worked directly on the Trump campaign. It states here she was involved in the organization of this January 6th rally and in direct communication with the former president about the rallies. That's quite striking. What do you hope to learn from these individuals and the records you're seeking about what happened leading up to the rally?
Well, we don't want to jump to a conclusion. We're doing an investigation, not an accusation. We want to find out everything there is to know about the coordination between the White House and these individuals whose names were up front in organizing the rally, what the intentions were, where did the money come from, how was it organized, how was that mob unleashed on the U.S. Capitol to overturn the election. We think that we'll learn things from these individuals, and what we've found is that as we get more information, it leads us to other information. Quite a few individuals have come forward voluntarily to provide information. Some people are asking for subpoenas, so there'll be more of those in days and weeks ahead. Others may be more recalcitrant, but whatever it takes, our job is to get to the bottom of this, and we take that task very seriously.
There was, of course, a second impeachment about some of these underlying issues. The president, through the constitutional process, was not convicted in that, although there was then some troubling evidence. But much more seems to be publicly known now. And as you explained, you're investigating all these leads. This reference to direct communication between Ms. Pearson and Donald Trump is one of the investigative leads or theories of the case that this committee is going to explore, is whether or not Donald Trump knew or was discussing the prospect of breaching the Capitol or violence as a plan, as part of the goal of January 6th in advance?
I'll just say that a majority of the House, including Republicans, and 57% of the United States Senate found that the then president incited this riot. That was the vote. Now, we didn't have available to us all of the information that is now coming forward. We need to find out every detail about this. And when we have all of the facts, we're going to be able to lay that out for the American people in a way that we think will be helpful for our country. We need to save our democracy here. We need to make sure that the threats to our democracy are averted, and that our wonderful American experiment in self-governance is preserved.
And in our introduction to you, again, before we just got this breaking news, and for those joining us, it's brand new 11 subpoenas of new individuals, including at least one former Trump campaign official from the January 6th committee. In our introduction to you, Congresswoman, we also mentioned the fact that the former president has publicly asked people to resist and not cooperate with your committee. Just for the record, what is your response to that request? And what should those individuals and these 11 individuals know about any obligations they have legally?
They have an obligation, each of them, to respond to the subpoena and to produce documents and testimony as they have been directed to do. The president, the former president, is a very litigious person. We all know that. He likes to sue people a lot. He usually loses. He's not the president. He doesn't have executive privilege because he's not the president. And so, we're prepared for whatever litigation, but I think some of this is frivolous. These individuals were not employees of, they were not White House counsel. And even then, we got the White House counsel. A court ordered him to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. So I don't think the former president is on firm ground, but we're ready to proceed to do what we need to do to get the facts. And I would hope that the president not involve himself in obstruction of Congress, because that itself is a violation of the criminal code.
Referring to the McGahn case, which, of course, the House did win, as you say. There was an effort by the then Trump administration to fight it. They lost. McGahn, the White House counsel, did testify. You said, Congresswoman, you don't think Donald Trump's on firm legal ground there. I would say that's quite diplomatic. It really looked like he was on quicksand because he filed a lot of suits that resulted in the loss. That brings me to the final question. And again, I appreciate you being here on a busy day. The final question is, with this executive privilege battle, we talked a lot about the Trump side. What about the Biden White House, which, as we reported, initially said from the lectern, no privilege for you, Donald Trump. Then they came back and said, well, it's case by case. But with regard to your committee, it's one case. It's the January 6th case. Right. Do you have an understanding of what the Biden White House's position is? Will they honor Donald Trump's attempted secrecy here, or overrule it, reject it, and provide this information? Do you know yet?
Well, what I take from the Biden administration is they don't intend to stonewall the Congress or the Select Committee on this. Having said that, it is appropriate to take every assertion and evaluate it and on the facts and the law and reach a conclusion. But very clearly, they're not intending to participate in a cover-up of this, which is apparently what the former president is seeking to do. I think he does not look like an innocent man when he tries to prevent the truth from coming out.
It is Thursday, the 30th of September of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Okay, you know, I really don't have a role for my mother's canine, Ginger, the Yorkie Poo. But she is visiting because she's an old gal and getting a bit of, has had some separation anxiety. And she misses my mother dearly. It's so, it's cute. At the very least, if one wants to minimize the existence of another living being. But it's a bit sad. She has these little whimpering dreams, or I don't know. It's sad. Also, she's gone deaf. And that's something that actually, before all of the rigmarole that occurred with my mom and I, we had have an appointment for her to find out what's gone on. You know, she's getting old, but she is deaf. She just does not hear you if you're behind her, which is a bit of a concern, because what if she were to wander out in the street? You know, she doesn't hear the car coming up behind her. We don't want that. Of course, she doesn't wander in the street. We don't have, the street's busy enough. We have a few of the type, and you know who I mean, who think that, residential street, there's no speed limit on a residential street. Kids? Survival of the fittest. Okay. I don't think they speak with that type of accent. It's a little bit too learned, if you know what I mean. Okay, so speaking of mom, my mom has progressed well enough that they moved her last night. They didn't wait till today. They got her out of there last night. But she's in what we call a step-down clinic, a care home, for her to stay in for, 10 days, maybe a couple of weeks, till she gets a bit stronger. But she is getting stronger, and I'll be running some supplies to her today. She is in the COVID ward there, which is okay. just as long as she doesn't, she's not around other people that have COVID. That's okay. We worried about the hospital, Asante Three Rivers in Grants Pass, because, it being a hospital, it can be a hotbed of infection, and it is. In the time that my mother was in the hospital, 4 other women died between the ages, one was in her mid to late 30s, and the eldest was around 70 or almost 80, around my mom's age. But 4 women died in the time that my mother was in the hospital, and they were all unvaccinated. They all died from COVID, all unvaccinated. So when my mother's doctor there at Asante, not the primary, but the heart doctor and others that were working on mom, because, she had COVID and a heart attack in the midst of it all. They called it a miracle that she survived, and the miracle was perpetuated by the vaccine. So here's my mom with comorbidities that would have killed her, almost did. And yet, she had the vaccine. And these other women, I have no idea what their comorbidities are or were, if they had any. But they died of COVID, and they were unvaccinated. My mom, with all of these other issues that could have killed her, wasn't pushed over the edge by the virus. I think that is testament right there. So get vaccinated, get your booster, keep washing your hands. I think that's a big one. I don't know. I guess if we wanted to be a bit more cautious, we might be wearing gloves when we go out and shop. You never know. Where we live, the county commissioners mock any other elected official and constituents for thinking that the virus is real. And Josephine County, well, the ones I'm talking about, because I just lived right on the border. And I should say, Jackson County isn't necessarily completely exempt from it. But it's not as bad as Josephine County, let's put it that way. Those commissioners are Looney Tunes. So I guess we were warned that this could happen in a representative democracy. I guess we were warned. Look, we're Americans. We punch Nazis. We don't let them tell us what to do in our schools. We don't let them storm our city halls and take it over by intimidation. Rachel's expose of the Harris County, Texas Democratic offices there that was firebombed last night, the night before last, caught on security camera footage. Security cameras are only put up because of previous attacks on those offices that the cops said, these things happen. What can you do? So now they actually have security camera footage of the guy that did it. FBI's on it. Hopefully that's a good thing. Because how is it that somebody could say that they wanted to put a bullet in Nancy Pelosi's brain pan for the world to hear, gets charged with a misdemeanor? That's a felony right there. You can't make those pronouncements. That is against the law. And the law stipulates that the punishment is much more harsh than a misdemeanor. Please. Even the judge is saying, what the hell? You punch the Nazis, you don't negotiate them, and you don't let them plea down. Please. Oh, they're jamming up our judicial system. Well, how about letting out some low-level drug offenses for people having a gram of pot on the street, you idiots? We're talking about an insurrection. We're talking about a coup. We're talking about death. Used to be just by the mere fact that you were there, you would have been charged as accomplices to murder of a cop, or 3, or 4. These guys, oh no, let them go. Guy in North Carolina gets off for running his truck through a Black Lives Matter protest. Oh, because he feared for his life. There was all these black people. Look, they were going to hook up. They're going to kill me and my family in our beds. And they're in the truck bed. I guess. Apparently he had his family. 6 kids. All in a pickup. Driving through the middle of a Black Lives Matter protest, and he got freaked. Give me a break. Join the protest. You're against racism, aren't you? Oh, you're not. And they let him go. North Carolina. You can drive and injure people. The guy got injured. Almost died, and other people did get injured. It's just insane. All on film, too, but it wasn't enough to sway the jurors, apparently. Or the judge. You don't negotiate with Nazis. You punch the Nazis, and then you punch them again. And punching the Nazis means we got to purge Nazis out of law enforcement and the military. All right. Gonna have to get a little draconian on your asses, aren't we? Yes. Well, not yours, but theirs. Jeez. I hate this too. You know, all I wanted to do was write poetry and comment on the condition of humanity, and now look what they got us into. Condition of humanity, indeed. What is in the curated part of our menu today? I bet you're wondering. You've been warned before about what's up today, as you are most days. But I'm going to repeat it just for your, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy dining pleasure. Yes, food for the brain and the mind. Well, starting off, of course, at the top, that was Zoe Lofgren explaining the January 6th committee's new subpoenas that they issued. Yeah. And there's even more. Apparently, Mick the Prick Mulvaney's daughter or some relative of his is caught up in it. It has the same name. So we'll see. Yes. Follow the money. Who got the permits and funded the protests that day? That, for some reason, as according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, turned into a random 3-hour riot. Random. Jeez. Okay, on the rest of the menu, the administration's failed nominee on gun policy says he got death threats and less than robust protection. We'll find out why. Or whether he got enough protection. We'll see. We'll see what's going on here. The two largest police organizations in the nation, by the way, suggested Republican Senator Tim Scott lied about the failed negotiations over the police reform bill. Yeah, what's up with Tim Scott? All of a sudden, I mean, we're talking about months of negotiations. Everything's hunky-dory, and then with the snap of a finger, I was wondering if maybe that was all planned to begin with another Lucy in the football deal. How many times do I have to tell you, do not negotiate with Nazis? You have to punch them. And the House Judiciary Committee voted to approve 3 bills aimed at tackling high drug prices, and it's about time. After the break, we move to the chef's table where police in northern Greece arrested 6 people and detained at least 59 others following clashes backed by an outlawed extreme right-wing political group. And Ukraine marked the 80th anniversary of the World War II Babi massacre. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so, and so much more. Also, stay tuned for Netroots Nation. Kelly will be covering it for us, and we'll have a few interviews or whatnot throughout the year, because that's how we do it here at Netroots Radio, indeed. Thank you, Kelly. If you out there in Radioland would look across the page to the left, there is our Patreon link. And, of course, this is almost like a broken record, but I feel compelled to remind folks that we have to pay our bills. And we thank those out there for being so generous and allowing us to do so, because paying our bills means that we can fly under the radar and continue this powerhouse of resistance against the Nazi takeover of the United States of America and democracy itself. Because it won't be democracy when the Nazis take over. We've already seen what they've done and what they're capable of doing. The same. They'll just do the same that they always do. And so, therefore, we must resist. And thank you for out there, those of you out there who have, for instance, sent us the equivalent of what they would spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, and then we stretch those dollars beyond compare. But I also need to tell you that we need more of it, and if we had more of you sending us espresso-type coffee drink value so that we can stretch those dollars beyond compare, we can pay the increasing costs of those bills and everything else. Nothing is free. But when in Rome, you got to pay Caesar. And that's what we do. So thank you for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty, because we are Americans after all. We punch Nazis. We don't negotiate with them. Eek. Okay. Enough of that, but thank you for your generosity, truly, now and in the future. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple because Tom takes care of it, and he made it simple. You just go to @Netroots Radio. How simple is that? You can also follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. Get that posted up and linked up on social media platforms like Twitter and others, and you know who they are. And you can also follow the show on Twitter @Cookbook West, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Deezer. I just love that there's a podcast distributor called Deezer. I don't know why. I don't know. It's fun. Deezer. Okay, speaking of fun, let's tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, because this is a salon. We got a speakeasy, which is, kind of like a salon in and of itself as well. And, and we also have the chef's table after the break, so stay tuned. Sarah N. Lynch of Reuters brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. President Joe Biden's failed nominee to run the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, had to add that one on, said he faced death threats while the U.S. Senate was considering him, but that the administration declined to provide him security. Did they? Longtime ATF agent and gun control advocate David Chipman said in an interview yesterday, Wednesday, that he hired a security advisor after repeatedly telling the FBI and his handlers at the Justice Department, who were assigned to help him navigate the confirmation process about the threats. The White House earlier this month withdrew Chipman's nomination to lead the ATF, where he worked for 25 years, after Senator Angus King, an independent who usually votes with the Democrats, declined to back his nomination. In the 5 months after being nominated to run the agency, he had been the target of repeated threats, Chipman said. Now, I bring this up because this has now become part of our politics. We are somehow allowing, and I'm just going to put it right out there, I'm not going to mince any more words, we're allowing the Nazis to intimidate people with no repercussions. You have to punch the Nazis. Don't charge them with a misdemeanor. Don't let them go after they've run over people with their rolling coal trucks. You punch the Nazis, and then you punch them again. Back to the story. What concerned me is there was no one in government that I knew who was willing to take responsibility for my own safety or my wife's safety, he said. I talked to the FBI. They were like, well, has anyone done anything? We investigate crimes. I said, well, that's not what I'm looking for. Who owns my security? In a statement to Reuters, a Justice Department official said it takes safety concerns seriously and that the department reviewed whether Chipman needed security. The department evaluated the need for protection based on Mr. Chipman's request. Additionally, the department reached out to local law enforcement to make them aware of Mr. Chipman's concerns, the official said. So, rather than an actual security detail of U.S. Marshals, which I think that he probably thought that he warranted, local law enforcement were apprised of the situations, and hopefully local law enforcement would follow the law. ATF's leadership has long been politically fraught. The Senate has confirmed just one nominee to the post in the past 15 years, thanks to fierce lobbying from powerful gun advocacy groups, including the National Rifle Association. But Chipman, who still serves as a senior policy advisor with the Giffords Gun Control Advocacy Group, faced additional hurdles, including, now get this, a social media disinformation campaign that he said was fueled in part by the National Sports Shooting Foundation. He said the group circulated bogus claims that he had killed women and children during the 1993 standoff in Waco, Texas, with the Branch Davidians. I guess there's people who think that well, I don't know. Were they a little heavy-handed with a bunch of gun nuts? End of time flat earthers? Please. The group spokesman, Mark Oliva, acknowledged his organization posted a blog citing a Daily Mail article that falsely claimed Chipman was depicted in a photo taken at Waco. When it became obvious that it was not him, we took that photo down, he said, calling the threats Chipman faced reprehensible. Really? Is that how you really feel? Death threats have become an increasing factor in U.S. politics, from the hundreds of people, thousands, of people who stormed the Capitol on January 6, trying to overturn Donald Trump's election defeat, to phone threats made to election workers in a plot to kidnap Michigan's governor by men angry about policies meant to stem the spread of COVID-19. Chipman said he took particular note of one threatening letter postmarked Grand Rapids, Michigan, given last year's plot against Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Chipman said he hired a security advisor to identify credible threats and plan safe travel. He said he intends to stay on at Giffords, founded by Democratic former U.S. Representative Gabby Giffords, after she was wounded by a gunman in a 2011 attempted assassination in Arizona, in which a little 12-year-old girl was killed. I could not be on the sidelines at this point in our history, Chipman said. Singer of the American Independent brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Two of the largest police organizations in the country suggested that a Republican senator lied about negotiations over a police reform bill which fell apart last week, despite months of negotiations between Democrats and Republicans in Congress. Senator Tim Scott, Repug of South Carolina, you know him, the lead Republican negotiator on the failed police reform legislation, said Sunday that talks fell apart because Democrats wanted to, quote, defund the police, end quote. Many provisions in this bill, the Democrats wanted me to agree to limited or reduced funding for the police, Scott said on CBS's News' Face the Nation. However, A statement released on Tuesday by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Fraternal Order of Police, FOP, said that is not true. Oh, tell me more. Quote, despite some media reports, at no point did any legislative draft propose defunding the police, the statement says. In fact, the legislation specifically provided additional funding to assist law enforcement agencies in training, agency accreditation, and data collection initiatives. End quote. The groups lamented the fact that the negotiations fell apart, writing, it is our joint belief that the provisions under discussion would have strengthened the law enforcement profession and helped improve the state of community police engagement without compromising management and officers' rights, authorities, and legal protections. End quote. Scott, the only black Republican senator, had been working on the police reform bill with Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass for more than a year. The reform discussion began after George Floyd was killed by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who has since been convicted on charges of murdering Floyd. Oh, but yeah, he's appealing. Yeah, I didn't kill him. Really? It's on tape, you little murderous thug. Grr. In June, Scott, Booker, and Bass had announced they had reached a framework for the reform bill, but said there was still more work to be done on the final bill, and nothing is agreed to until everything is agreed to. But on September 22nd, the talks officially broke down. We made it clear from the beginning of our negotiations that a bill must ensure true accountability, transparency, and the policing standards necessary to bring an end to horrific incidents of violence Americans are routinely seeing, like the murder of George Floyd, Booker said in a September 22nd statement. After months of exhausting every possible pathway to a bipartisan deal, it remains out of reach right now, even after working collaboratively with and securing the support of policing groups like the Fraternal Order of the Police. They are no social commies. Please. And even the International Associations of Chiefs of Police. Not good enough. That same day, Scott lobbed his accusation that Democrats wanted to defund the police, and that's why the talks fell apart. Despite having plenty of agreement, Democrats said no because they could not let go of their push to defund our law enforcement, Scott wrote in a September 22nd statement. Once again, the left let their misguided idea of perfect be the enemy of good, impactful legislation. The bill that was being negotiated, however, actually added funding for police departments for a number of things, including mental health resources for officers and data collection. The two police groups confirmed that fact in their statement. Parts of Reuters brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. The U.S. House Judiciary Committee voted yesterday, Wednesday, to approve 3 bills to stop practices drug makers use to raise prices and fend off competition, including a bill to ban the tactic of paying generic companies to delay bringing cheaper versions of their medicines to market. While the votes were not unanimous, they passed the committee by a big margin. A 4th measure is set to be considered today, Thursday. Committee Chairman Jared Nadler said the Congressional Budget Office had estimated that banning so-called pay-for-delay patent deals used to stall generic competition, the subject of one of the bills, would save Americans more than $500 million over 10 years. The measures were introduced in a rare hearing that mixed members of the House and Senate, during which lawmakers from both parties and from both chambers said they had introduced the bills aimed at ultimately lowering the cost of prescription medicines for Americans. 4 identical bills were introduced in the House and Senate. The House Judiciary Committee voted yesterday, Wednesday, to enable the Federal Trade Commission to ban sham citizen petitions, in which drug companies petition the U.S. Food and Drug Administration about a generic company seeking approval for a rival drug with the goal of delaying its market entry. Brand name drugs can fairly quickly lose more than 80% of their sales revenue once multiple generic versions reach the market. Well, maybe they shouldn't be given the drugs in the first place. Then they wouldn't become addicted to them, would they? They also approved a measure to stop product hopping, the practice of making a minor tweak to the formula of a medication to win a new patent and therefore a longer period of exclusivity, and would also stop pay-for-delay patent deals. The Senate Judiciary Committee approved the measures in July, all on a voice vote. The House Judiciary Committee is set to vote today on the last measure, which would make it easier to bring to market biosimilars, cheaper versions of expensive biotech drugs that cannot be exactly duplicated, unlike pills. And the measures must be taken up by the full House and the Senate. You know, like in Schoolhouse Rock. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You were listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. Wintering in the northernmost regions of Alaska is no walk in the park. It's cold and dark and sometimes snowy, but that didn't stop dinosaurs from nesting there during the Cretaceous period.
Dinosaurs were not only just living in the Arctic 70 million years ago in what's now northern Alaska, but they were actually capable of reproducing there as well.
Patrick Druckenmiller of the University of Alaska Fairbanks and the director of the University of Alaska Museum of the North.
In discovering that they were reproducing there, it has an important implication that strongly suggests that they were actually year-round residents in the Arctic.
Now, the Arctic wasn't as chilly then as it is today, but it was below freezing, with temps dipping down to around 14 degrees Fahrenheit, occasional bouts of snowfall, and, of course, 4 months of winter darkness. If living in those conditions seems daunting, so was obtaining the study samples.
In order to get and reach our field sites, we actually have to drive from Fairbanks about 500 miles north up to Prudhoe Bay in the oil field. From there, we board small planes and helicopters and we fly out to our field site. And then we put together a couple of boats, and then we use the rivers up there as our highways.
When they spot a rock that looks particularly promising, usually in a bluff or cliff face along the river, they climb up and start collecting sediment. which then gets hauled back to the lab to be processed and examined.
We wash it, we screen it, we sieve it, and we collect and save every particle larger than 0.5 millimeter. And what we do then is inspect every grain by grain by grain, under a microscope, looking for these little remains, the bones and the teeth of what we now understand to be baby dinosaurs.
These itty-bitty bones and teeth are way too tiny to have come from an adult dinosaur, even a wee one. And they lack the features one would expect to see in specimens from an animal that's developmentally mature. So far, Druckenmiller and his team have dug up species from 7 different dino families, from big duck-billed dinos, ceratopsians and tyrannosaurs, to smaller thessaliosaurs, leptoceratops, dromaeosaurs, and troodontids. The findings are described in the journal Current Biology. Now, why does the presence of baby bones suggest that the dinosaurs weren't just passing through?
Now, the reason we think they are year-round residents is because if you reproduce in the Arctic, you have really a very limited time of year to do your business.
Egg-laying animals don't usually engage in reproductive activities in the winter.
So if you laid an egg in the spring and that egg took 5 to 6 months to hatch, which is what we understand the incubation period to be for some dinosaurs, such as duck-billed dinosaurs, then that means your eggs are hatching out at the end of the summer.
Which doesn't really leave enough time to head south for the winter with the family. And that raises probably the most important question.
So if you're overwintering there, how do you deal with the cold?
Some of the smaller species, like thessaliosaurs and leptoceratops, could have burrowed underground and hibernated. And other researchers have unearthed evidence that some larger dino species actually sported feathers, including young T-Rexes and their shaggy-coated cousin, Eutyrannus huali.
We're pretty certain that most of these meat-eating dinosaurs might have had their own down parka, as it were, to deal with the harsh winter conditions.
Even more intriguing, the evidence suggests that these Arctic dinos were likely warm-blooded.
We don't actually find fossils of cold-blooded land-living animals alongside our dinosaurs. We've never found turtles. We've never found crocs or lizards. The only thing we find besides dinosaurs up there are birds and mammals, which are also warm-blooded.
To date, Druckenmiller and his colleagues have spent decades braving the elements to figure out what made this remote polar location an attractive place to raise a family, at least for dinos who didn't mind the cold.
It's definitely a labor of love.
And a product of stick-to-itiveness, particularly when it comes to clinging to an Arctic cliff face to collect a bunch of baby teeth. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
He's running first, second, third. No! He stopped between third and home. What the heck?
Ooh, that's not the time to stop. And now's not the time to stop wearing a mask. Vaccines are a game changer. But the game's not over. Mask up until you're vaccinated. Let's finish strong. For more information, please visit cdc.gov/masks. A message by CDC and the Ad Council.
But Mom!
Don't but Mom me. You heard what the doctor said.
I'm fine. I just got my bell rung. It's not like I blacked out.
You've had headaches, dizzy spells, and you're just not yourself. That's not feeling fine.
Come on, I can't miss the game.
It's still serious, even if you didn't black out. It's better to miss one game than the whole season.
All concussions are serious. Know the warning signs and never let your child return to play before a healthcare professional says it's okay. A message from CDC.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith. and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that began the Elaine Massacre. The massacre took place in Arkansas, where more than 100 black farmers and sharecroppers were gunned down for daring to organize their labor. The year before, a black farmer by the name of Robert L. Hill had founded the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. Union members pooled their money to purchase land. They also hired a lawyer to sue planters who did not give black tenant cotton farmers their fair share of the profits. The group grew in membership in the Arkansas Delta region, including near the town of Elaine in Phillips County. But white landowners would not allow this challenge to their power. Armed white militias came to a church where the union was holding a meeting. The black attendees were also armed. Gunfire broke out. In response, white posses and federal troops unleashed a wave of terror across Phillips County. Hundreds of black residents were arrested. At least 100 black Arkansans were killed. Some estimates of those murdered is considerably higher. 5 white people also died. 122 black men and women were charged with murder. 12 were given the death sentence. No white vigilante, however, was ever charged. The convicted African Americans appealed their cases. One appeal for 6 of the defendants went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it was overturned in a landmark ruling. The year of 1919 was one of the deadliest years of violence against African Americans in U.S. history. Civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson called those bloody months the Red Summer. 26 race riots left thousands of African Americans homeless and hundreds dead from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to Omaha.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 43 degrees Fahrenheit. How dare they? And we are expecting a high in the upper 70s, low 80s, mainly sunny to start, then a few afternoon clouds. Winds will be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour a little bit later on this morning. Partly cloudy skies overnight will become overcast, well, starting off in the evening and then overcast overnight. And lows in the mid-50s, so not so bad in terms of chilly nights. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and we are expecting partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs in the upper 70s, winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon now stands at 216,075, and deceased remains at 276. Astounding numbers. Ragweed pollen is rated low, thankfully. I wonder what was making me sneeze yesterday. And the air quality index for the region is good at 38 parts per million. And oh my, that daytime UV index, though it is in the moderate range, has now dropped another notch to 3. Must be fall. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.18 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 97%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 61 and cloudy. Paris is 64 and sunny. Rome is 84 and fair. Kyiv is 54 and fair. Kabul is 72 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 82 degrees and clear. Tokyo, Japan is 72 degrees with a heavy rain shower. Sydney, Australia is 64 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 56 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 61 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Police in northern Greece have arrested 6 people and detained at least 59 others following clashes involving young people backed by an extreme right-wing political group. The youths entered a vocational high school and hurled gasoline bombs, flares, and rocks at a rival gathering organized by left-wing university student groups against government education reforms. The clashes occurred yesterday in the northern part of Greece's second-largest city, where police used tear gas to break up the violent demonstration as classes at the school were ongoing. Left-wing groups then protested the violence, and police fired tear gas and stun grenades to prevent the right-wing group from attacking the protesters. Another 19 people were detained. A youth wing of the extreme right-wing group Golden Dawn had earlier expressed support for the morning counter-demonstration. A Greek court ruled last year that the far-right party was operating as a criminal organization and sentenced members of its leadership, including former lawmakers, to up to 13 years in prison.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Ukraine yesterday, Wednesday, marked the 80th anniversary of the Babi Yar massacre, one of the most infamous mass slaughters of World War II. Babi Yar, a ravine in the Ukraine capital of Kyiv, is where nearly 34,000 Jews were killed within 48 hours in 1941, when the city was under Nazi occupation. The killing was carried out by SS troops along with local collaborators. Ukrainian President Zelensky laid flowers at the monument the victims of the massacre on Wednesday. Babi Yar, 2 short words that sounds like 2 short gunshots, but carry long and horrid memories for several generations, because they know and remember that not 2 gunshots sounded in Babi Yar, but hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of times more, Zelensky said. All Ukrainian schools held a lesson dedicated to the 80th anniversary of the tragedy on Wednesday yesterday. The Nazis in Babi Yar, according to various estimates, executed between 100,000 and 200,000 people. Aside from Jews, there were Ukrainians and Roma, prisoners of war, and patients of a psychiatric hospital. Someone will hear these 2 scary words and those scary numbers for the first time. Zelensky said. Ukraine has started the construction of a Babi Yar memorial complex and a museum at the site of the mass executions, and plans to unveil it in 2025 to 2026. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.